The most obvious benefit of a DCC layout is being able to run multiple trains on the same track using a single controller. But going digital also means you can add lights to your locos with the help of some LEDs. But it's tricky to get the brightness right, and in the past I've tended towards spectacle rather than realism. But for my latest project, I want a more authentic effect. So in this video, I'm building myself a test rig to try out various LED resistor combinations to get those light levels right. It will also come in handy when I've got a decoder to test. The build of my device is very straightforward and doesn't require many specialist parts, one of which being this standard 8-pin decoder socket, which I got from eBay for less than £3. The square pads attached to each pin will make it easy for me to solder short jumper cables to plug into this prototyping breadboard along with the other components. If you're not familiar with breadboards, they're quite simple. Just a grid of standardized holes at standardized distances, designed for standardized electrical components. Behind the scenes, the columns of holes are connected, making it quick and easy to create circuits that can also easily be adapted, which is ideal for our test rig, which I can now get on with, starting with the connection to the controller. In my case, I'm using a Hornby Select, which connects to the layout with a short cable and a barrel connector. So I've found a similar socket, which I'm sticking to the edge of my rig with a bit of double-sided tape. Your setup will almost certainly be different, so you'll need to choose a method that most closely replicates your connections. You could even use a pair of crocodile clips and take the connection straight from the track. Now for the decoder socket, and you'll see that I'm attaching that to the top of the board with some sticky fixers too. Note that it's just stuck to the surface and there are no electrical connections yet. For those I've got this ribbon cable with plugs at one end and sockets at the other, and I'm just teasing out individual wires, selecting the ones that match the colour scheme of the decoder, starting with the red and black cables, which actually don't need the plugs, so I can just snip those off and strip the ends of the wires, before soldering between the terminals on the barrel connector and the appropriate pad on the decoder socket. These are clearly marked with the function and the colour of the wire, so it's hard to get them in the wrong place, and with the red wire done, we can turn our attention to the black one, soldering it to the other terminal on the barrel socket, and the appropriate pad. Now, if this was an actual loco installation, the red and black wires would go to the pickups on the wheels, so we're very much cutting out the middleman by connecting directly to the controller. Similarly, the orange cable from the decoder would normally go straight to the motor, but on our test rig, we want it to light an LED, just to show it's working correctly. So I've got the plugged end pushed into the breadboard, and the other soldered to the socket. We'll do the same for the grey negative motor connection. If you want to see how this all translates to an actual loco, particularly an older one that's very much not DCC ready, check out my video in the link above, which also explains what's going on with the electrics, which essentially is that we're taking a 15-volt AC current, which our digital decoder chip will turn into a variable DC current to power the motor, with the voltage controlling the speed. So time to fit the decoder to my test rig, making sure we get the plug in the right way round. Now let's have a quick look at the schematic. I've got my breadboard with its columns of holes connected behind the scenes, and my 8-pin decoder socket. And here's my orange jumper cable going to one of the columns on the top half of the board, and the grey one going to one on the bottom half, each wire being connected to a set of holes into which we can plug our other components, starting with our LED, the long positive leg of which we want to line up with our orange cable. Then we can complete the circuit with a resistor so the LED doesn't blow. And here it is in real life. The legs of the LED just push into the holes. You may have to wiggle them around a bit, as the connecting strip is quite tight. The same with the resistor, just bending round the wire so it fits in the hole. Then, with the circuit complete, we can put it to the test. And here's my Select controller, which I can plug into the rig with my barrel connector. As my decoder chip is brand new, it's still on the default setting, so I don't need to worry about addressing it. And as soon as I turn the speed dial, my LED lights up, getting brighter the faster I go. Just one thing to notice, because it's a diode, it only works in one direction, but our LED has shown us that the motor would be working. But as it stands, it's a bit of a blunt instrument. The LED gets to maximum brightness quite quickly, so in order to get a more gradual brightening, I want to try out a higher value resistor, which with the breadboard is dead easy to do. Just take out the old one and replace it with the new one. And of course you can test it straight away, and the effect is now really smooth. You can ignore that slight pulsing, that's down to the video camera. Already that's given us a taste of how it's going to work with our lighting circuits, and we can go ahead and wire those up in a very similar way. The directional head and tail lights share a common positive the blue wire to the decoder. But for clarity, let's start by thinking about it from the headlight perspective only, which uses the white wire for the negative return to the decoder. Now this one has to curl around quite a lot to get to its pad on the decoder socket circuit board, but at least there's just one awkward one. But I really do want my two lights to be next door to each other for easy comparison, and even though it's a bit fiddly, it only needs to be done once. Then a similar procedure for the yellow wire of the rear lights, which has a much more direct route, but presents its own challenges of getting our soldering iron in amongst the wires, without melting anything other than the solder. But thankfully that's the last one, and we can put our soldering iron away, the last connection being made with a jumper cable, plugging in next door to the blue wire to provide the common positive to both head and tail lights. And here's the schematic for both circuits, with the wiring and LED and resistors in place. Just pause if you need to study it more closely. The LEDs I'm using are the ones you saw on the Class 37 at the beginning of the film, and they fit in exactly the same way as the orange motor test one. The long leg is the positive. Then we can fit the resistor between that and the blue wire. Following my slightly trial and error tests for the motor LED, I've chosen quite a high value of 15,000 ohms, which is way more than I've been using before, so no wonder my lights were so bright. I'll be coming on to how to identify resistor values later, but for now, let's put the ones we're using to the test, refitting the decoder and plugging in the controller. Now I deliberately put the orange light well away from the white ones, so it wouldn't interfere with my optical tests, and as soon as I press the function button, I can see exactly how bright they're going to be. Note again, the orange light only comes on in one direction. And I'm pretty happy with that brightness, but I think they could be a little dimmer, so I need to find an even higher value resistor. Resistance is measured in ohms, and the values are indicated by rings around the resistors themselves, but it's a system that's quite difficult to decode. So if you have got a multimeter, even a cheap one like mine, it'll make life much easier. First of all, let's compare the original one we used for the motor LED, which was about 465 ohms, to the one we ended up using. This has a much higher value, so we need to turn the dial to the next step up to get a reading, which is about 6.47 thousand ohms. So well over 10 times as much, and judging by the brightness of the orange LED, still not enough for our white ones. So let's find an even higher resistance. And for my next test subject, I need to turn that dial another step to get my reading of 36,000 ohms. I can actually use that same setting to retest my previous one, and I now know that that's the kind of ballpark where I'm looking for the right value. I started my tests with a 15,000 ohm resistor, the one you saw earlier. I'd figured that a 36,000 would be overkill, but let's give it a go, and by switching over the resistor for the rear lights only, I can make a direct comparison, just by switching over the direction on the controller. And that's the one I think I'm going to go for, and my test rig has done its job. And by switching resistors, I've gone from this to this. Way more realistic.